Spoken for me.
Okay, and I saved the best for last, so we have Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you to all of the trustees who are here. I think it is magnificent. I might take a little issue of elected officials. I'd like to think of us as public servants. And I'd like to thank Alton and Chairwoman Linda, Good, David, Ron, and Kyle, and Ken. Let's give them a big hand. They are trustees. You all can do better than that. They are listening. Let's exercise our hand. Give them another applause. How about that? Let me thank all the faculty that are here. I had a fascinating time at the table. I almost wish that I could have gone around to all of the tables, but it is not often that we are here in the district, and I was just very grateful to have the time to be here. Let me thank President Pearson for her kind welcome and leadership on this campus. To me, it looks like a very tranquil and wonderful place for learning, as is Lone Star. You have one of the outstanding chancellors, Dr. Ed. Much of Lone Star is in my congressional district, and so a lot of us share you all, and we are very proud of what Lone Star has done, one of the fastest growing community colleges in the nation. You should give yourselves a very big hand. Allow me a few thoughts. I am not in the Texas legislature, so I come not without commentary on my colleagues, my brothers and sisters who are in the state legislature, and certainly they have debated both the open carry and the concealed weapons on campuses, I know. But I am the newly selected and elected ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee's Crime, Terrorism, Homeland Security, and Investigations Committee. I am the first woman to ever serve on that committee since it was founded in 1813. And I take a special privilege to come and listen to all of you as we begin to look at issues impacting all of us. Obviously, you say crime, and there's no crime in this room, but it deals with all the issues of law enforcement. And so it is my responsibility to be assured of the practices and the work of law enforcement and the safety and security of law enforcement. And so I raise a number of issues on this very important discussion. And I might say that I wish to again thank Dr. Tice for this civil engagement. This is, I'm going to bring you to the United States Congress and have you engage us. Back. I think this is a wonderful expression of democracy. I don't run away from democracy, though it has been said by one of our great comedians of the 1920s that if you want to come and watch a massive disorganization and someone stranger comes into the room and says, "What's going on?" They say it's an exercise in democracy. It is not pretty. The founding fathers understood that, and one of our esteemed faculty members I think said he loved democracy, and one of my dear friends here who works in security had this because he is a firm believer in the Second Amendment, which is in the Bill of Rights, and he is right that we have these rights, but we have these rights in the climate of a new America, and there are many elements of this that we need to look at. So let me just offer to say to you, I'm going to leave with any of the professors who want to have my legislation, H.R. 47, which deals with gun storage and safety devices for all firearms, which if you take a recounting of the news stories of this area, you will find the numbers of 5-year-olds, 2-year-olds, 10-year-olds who shot their brothers, their sisters, their grandmothers, primarily because guns are in places where they are either not stored or without a safety device. And this legislation is simple and just asks for manufacturers and sellers who are licensed, this is a federal law, all over the nation, just provide that someone comes in and purchases the safety device as they purchase the particular element. Again, I am a person that realizes that I work within the framework of the law, even though I have my opinions. And so I would offer to say that the present SB 11 bill stretches my imagination, but what we had today was democracy. But let me offer a few thoughts for you. Private schools, there's something called the 14th Amendment for citizens that is the equal protection of the law. As a lawyer, if I would take that point, I would argue that by giving private schools the right to ban the concealed weapons on campus, and some of the folk here that may have a difference of opinion who are going to a public school for a variety of reasons may not have that same right. And there is a question as to whether or not the schools that are private take federal dollars, and they do. Or they take state dollars, and some of them do, but they are private schools. But they will have the right to be able to not comply with SB 11, but those who are not, I raise the question of the equal protection of the law. Let me also say that, in particular, what is happening under SB 11 is that it's going to be a defined right. It means that the schools will be penalized if they have a reason, without the third option, to have a disagreement or another opinion about a student or students with a concealed weapon. Because it is a defined right. It's not just, well, it's okay, it is a defined right. That means you will be breaking Texas law, state law, if that was to be the case. There were amendments offered, and I think amending is a reasonable process. That is what we did here. That is what you did. You talked, you had some people objected, some people made comments, and some did not. But the amendments that were rejected raised concern. Amendments about not being able to carry them in dorms, in clinics, in faculty offices, and of course in the Texas Medical Center. So you would wonder why we couldn't have a wonderful compromise. I sat next to a wonderful Marine, and you should be very proud that he graduated from here. And he really took the spirit. I'm around a lot of military a lot as a member of Congress. I traveled to the many bases around the world and spent a number of times in Iraq during the Iraq War and in Afghanistan as well. When they allowed members of Congress to come, I wanted to come and see our Texas constituents and thank them for their service. He made an important comment, one that he will always be protected because he has his training. I assume they're ex-Marines, ex-Army, ex-Navy. The training that our military get carries with them throughout their lives. That's why we owe them not only a debt of gratitude, and why don't I have any veterans, and let's have all of the veterans stand at this time just for a moment. I'm almost finishing. Let's have all the veterans. He made an interesting point, which might be an amendment on certain persons who have the training, and maybe the students would consider that. And I would say that the challenge that I think this legislation has is that there is reason to look at a number of sub-steps or compromises to it. And let me lead myself to a close, if you will. The present licensing under concealed weapons, and a student was very articulate on the criteria, is very limited. It's a matter of IDs and whether you have any felons or whether you've been charged with domestic violence. There is not a standard of care. There is not a standard of how many hours of training have you had. Let me be very clear. I am also an aviation security expert. I know all of you have been watching this horrific tragedy of the falling of the Germanwings plane. That co-pilot, beyond the question of his mental state, had only 400 hours of training versus the 10,000 hours that the captain had, as I recall my facts. And so there is a question of training, and we don't ask for that in the concealed weapons. We just ask for a licensing. So I would raise that point, and when I say that, legislation should be a compilation of listening to everyone and thinking, what's the most thoughtful way to pass this legislation to make it work for everybody? I've heard faculty members saying that they would be uncomfortable. And I heard a gentleman say if there's only 5 guns in here or whatever, and if somebody ran into the room. Well, I've talked to officers who tell that if you're not trained, you can have 50 guns and you can all be shooting each other. I am not a witness of that, and so I'm not here trying to suggest to you that, but this is what I hear from law enforcement. You have to be trained, and how difficult it is to be able to focus on that culprit. And that is a challenge. Why do I say that? I only say that to say that I hope my colleagues in the debate will listen to a number of factors. I understand the Chief of Police from Austin made a comment and raised the concerns that we have. And then I want to, a gentleman that I have great respect for, and it's interesting that he has now become the chancellor, so all the veterans have chances to engage and involve themselves in academia. If some of you who stood were not already professors, but all of us know, and we're certainly thinking of the leadership that the University of Texas Chancellor William McRaven, Admiral McRaven, was a Navy SEAL, and I just came back about a couple of months ago from the Navy SEAL base in San Diego and went through parts of their training, meaning was briefed and was out on the field where they were doing their training. It was an unbelievable training. They actually trained right in the Pacific Ocean. They are real. And McRaven, of course, was the head of the team that brought down Osama bin Laden. Basically, he had a simple expression. He indicated that this bill, as it is now, would make classrooms less safe. This is a person who uses guns and used guns in the most dangerous of settings. And he said there's a great concern that the presence of handguns, even if limited to licensed individuals age 21 or older, will lead to an increase to both accidental shootings and self-inflicted wounds. Now, I would think that we wouldn't want to create hysteria. Here's my point. My point is that I have to look at the world when I begin to talk about criminal justice reform in the United States. I have to hear every person. I have to hear them from a place where we've all heard, Missouri. I have to hear them from Texas. I have to hear them from New York. I have to hear academic persons to be able to make laws that are going to impact the United States of America. This law is going to impact a huge number of public schools. And when I say that, the higher education and elsewhere, campuses, then I think there should be, I don't know where it is procedurally, I would just offer that the voices here, maybe some of the information should be sent up to all of you, to the legislature, to make the kind of right decision that we all need to make. I hope that we will have these bills here, H.R. 47, and it is just a simple change to make sure that there is a safety lock and on storage. Let me finish on this note. I feel the professor getting closer and closer, but he doesn't have a gavel, so that's... But let me also say that one of the things is, I mentioned it at the table, the concealed weapon, I guess, is on you. But there are moments in your academic education that you are doing things where you've got to put it down. Whether you put it down in a backpack, whether you put it down. And so there is a need for storage, which the university would have to make a decision about how they would store these guns if the student was doing a variety of things, going to the health clinic, running track. And that's really a question that one would have. So I want to say that the Constitution is a precious document. I live with it all the time in Washington, and particularly as a member of the Judiciary Committee. It is our living document that we have. And I am not here to oppose the Second Amendment. I champion the Second Amendment. In all my remarks, I count the Second Amendment as a very valuable part of the Bill of Rights. And my colleague here at the table explained what the little green tabs are, which is the Second Amendment, 2A. And frankly, that is something that none of us are opposing. What we are saying is that the Second Amendment embraces the growth of America, and I've always indicated that a regulatory structure does not infringe on the Second Amendment. And we should be able to come together as a people, as veterans and students, to discuss not only federal laws, which I don't get to see you in Washington as much as I'd like, but the state laws to make sure that everyone can have a place at the table. And I offer amendments and legislation, as I've just discussed with you, because I want everyone to have a seat at the table. That is what you have done, and so let me thank you, President Pearson, for the opportunity to have such a vigorous discussion, and it will have a real impact as I go back to Washington on the work that we will be doing, and we hope that we will hear from you as we process through this whole question of criminal justice reform. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Dr. In uniform, I'm going to be listening to them about these guns, but training is key. But I always close by saying, God bless all of you, and God bless the United States of America.